I'm so excited that Louisville has a big antique mall that is really thriving and has been the beneficiary of a lot of other antique malls going by to buy. And it is the Mellwood Antiques and Interiors behind me here in this old factory building in Louisville. We're in Butchertown. This used to be the meatpacking district, and now these buildings have found other use. This has become an art center and the antique center. Coming into the foyer now, the stuff in here is from the antique mall, but actually it is around the corner because there's a whole bunch of other stuff going on upstairs here. So we're headed this way. Hello. Good, how are you? This is a very, very large place. There's a ton of stuff here. And I really like right off the models, the Learjet and the probably a Cessna to the left there. I mentioned if I had a castor set collection, I would want them with the ruby flash, and here's why. Look how nice it is cut back. And you get all of that design and a little bit more color to set in the middle of your silver plate. If you're gonna be fancy, why not go all the way? This is very sweet, the bride and groom. I can't see the price, of course, because it's flipped, but these cake toppers from the 40s and 50s are definitely collectible now, and even into the 60s. Now, they have a lot of nice silver and porcelain and china sets here, and a lot of them are on sale because people still enjoy this sort of thing, and younger people are starting to get into this again, but they want a little of it. And they want it to be something reasonable because they only want to use it on occasions. 12 Waterford Marquis red flutes, because of the red, that's a reasonable price, especially when you take into account that it's $60 off for the sale. I always like the orange on gold the best. I see a lot of green on gold. I don't see as much in orange. Blue is nice too when you can get it. This particular one has the signature here, and it is a Culver set from the 1960s. I would be surprised to find a cheap price on a double spout, but let's see if we can find a price at all. Yeah, no luck so far. This may be the least dramatic of these three vases, but this one is the sleeper to me. Made in USA. This is early McCoy with that brown onyx glaze. And then this looks like 60s or 70s. It might even be Alaska clay. It has that tonation with the really white and the really creamy and then chocolate milk colored big swirls. So that would be my guess as to the origin of that piece in the 1970s. I've had modernists say they prefer it without the design, but I like this fun pink and black design on this Eva Zeisel. This was done by Hall. It's part of her Hall craft line. She designed for a lot of different companies, and they said she was not easy to deal with, but only because she was very strict about wanting her designs executed as close to the original intent as possible, and for the companies to not cheapen it by taking shortcuts and changing her designs. So she lived to be 100 years old, and she influenced mid-century dinnerware design in particular so incredibly. This is the Harlequin pattern. Once you get into this place, it's just tomb-like, and there's a lot of spaces that are really piled very deeply. So to really go through here and see everything would take a very, very, very deep dig. As much as I am about getting deals and finding stuff to bring to you at shows and appearances and live sales, I really also want to show you things that are interesting and unique that you might not see or have seen before. That is a lot of the fun of this. So let's take a look at some of the areas that have some really big stuff and big prices, and then we'll work our way into the dig. What a neat lamp this is. I'm not sure if this is Spanish, but it is beautiful. I love the cage around it. This is just fantastic, and it would be a great seller from about 1970. There really are some very nice things here. I just sold a pair of these church lamps. In fact, I sold 4 to a fellow in Memphis. They were not quite as spectacular as these, but these are priced at $600 a pair. I knew a designer would get them. I didn't get a lot out of them, but I was glad to see them go because they were big. This is a neat stainless cart, and this one's $4.95. The last one we saw was half that. I like this vintage eyeball lamp from the 70s, and it's 20% off of $195, and that's in a pretty reasonable range. Wow, there's something interesting. Age, unsure. Chainsaw art, you know, I've known about it for 30 some years or more. Is it newer? Probably not. It looks like it has some wear where it should at the bottom, where the vacuum hit it or someone scuffed it when they were cleaning or an animal was near it. It's priced at $6.95. It is really neat. This is a fun 60s era chair design too, to look modern like an Ames chair, but at a fraction of the price. And they are a fraction of the price now, but still that might be $800 to $1,000. Yes, you can get Victorian chairs new, but like this fellow says, they're over $1,000 each, depending where you get them. And he's asking a quarter of that minus 20%. So this is a very reasonable price if you like modernism. They're actually comfortable when you have the covers on them. We are in Louisville, so mint julep cups, especially sterling ones, are going to be of value. And there's some good early hallmarks from makers around here, and they're even more so. We helped a family in Florida who had connections to Kentucky and ended up selling some good ones for them. They're asking about $380 a piece, and you know, that's honestly about a fair price for them these days. Kentucky Derby glasses, it depends on age. The 1973 here, they have a high price on. The 1952, they have $250 on, but that's an old one. That's hard to get. A lot of these are early and scarce. This is a scarce 1960s space-related bank. I don't see this version much ever, and it's a great one. And this was from right here in Louisville. They have $116 on it, but for a serious collector, they might well pay that. A whole bunch of local interest things here, and you see the prices wherever you are. Things from the area you live in are of interest to people who have lived there a long time and collect this sort of thing, or who had relatives there, or people online who have moved away from there and reminisce about it. Because I don't like to polish, I'm not a big lover of silver plate usually. This piece is fantastic. I even like where they left the patina. I would do very little to it if I collected these. It is $195, but it's the Breckenridge Fair Association 1909 Bank of Hardin County and Trust Company triple handle loving cup. That was a very popular style right around 1910. If you collected silver plate or trophies, and there are a lot of trophy collectors, that is the price that you would pay if you like that piece. Really nice when you find the box with the original promo cards. They were usually given to kids, so the boxes went away really fast in the early days. $160 with the box. Num num pretzels, and well, that's an expression I really do not like because I was not raised on baby talk. I see that it is the property of Num Num Foods in Cleveland, Ohio. So somebody loved these, and they are pretzels, so I'm sure they were num nummy. But $75 seems like a really good price. Again, this is something if you were going to take to Ohio, boy, I'd be tempted to get that if I could get a little bit of a dealer discount. And that just goes to show you that it's a question of theory as far as pricing, because my theory is that's a regional brand and you don't see it, so it's going to be worth more money to the person who will buy it, and their theory is it's not going to be as popular and it'll be slower to sell. And it's possible both of those things are true, because it may be a very specific collector. I really like their still banks. None of these seem to be mechanical, but they're all neat. A.C. Williams is the St. Bernard. We see that one a lot, $60. Their prices are all very fine. Perfect retail, right where I would price things. Doesn't help me for buying for the shows I'm going to be doing, but it does show you that if you're a collector, this is a place you can shop. Well, here is quite a dollhouse. They want $995 for it, but it is this, which folklore says came from the basement of an old hotel in Frankfurt, and it even comes with its carriage house and a little bit of green fencing as well. And apparently they have the trim and the doors and everything in that box down there. So if you wanted to put this back together, it would be the most amazing dollhouse, and it is absolutely folk made, and I would say dates back a century or more, probably more, because carriage houses like these, if they couldn't be turned into garages, were pretty quickly torn apart or turned into sheds once cars came along. Now, this is a fine interior store as well. Places that have beautiful marble pedestals like this for $4.95. That's about what I got for the last one I sold. It's been a while. And they have people to help you, which is nice.
This rendering of Christ with the Sacred Heart and the Orban Cross reflect his dominance of the world and his love for the world, and came about in medieval Catholicism. A lot of these things are coming out of churches that are closing now.
I know that there's a customer in this part of the country for this as well, but my impression about this elm altar table, even though it doesn't look like it's terribly old, I still think at $875, if the dealer gave a small discount, you would be able to take this to the West Coast and double the price. This is one of the music box pieces from Japan. The Carolers, $29.75. They might play something that YouTube won't let us play for you, so I won't wind it. No, that's not true. I will, because I want to show you something about winding these. When you wind, do it very gently and see which way it wants to go. Never force it. If it feels like it won't, don't try to make it worse. This does not seem like it will go, and there is no release. So that does not work and would not be worth trying to fix. If you are winding it up, if it can be wound, only wind it about halfway. Never wind everything to its extreme, because old things like this are not really meant to take being pushed to the extreme all the time. The religious statuary is quite monumental. The first piece was dated 1924. This needs a small restoration, so it's not as expensive, and it's 20% off everything in this booth. So now we have to recalculate everything that we just talked about. How much are things? This is now about $2,000. That's now about $2,800 or $2,900, and everything else we looked at is a different price too. This nice carved Asian cabinet looks like it's from the Nationalist era or possibly late dynastic. It is priced at $895. That's a price I'm used to seeing in the West. I get asked about Utrillo prints a lot in appraisals. They were very popular. He's an interesting artist from France.
We come from France.
A lot of these were printed in the 1950s and 60s when these colors were starting to really come into prominence. It's priced about $225, and that is exactly where I think retail value is. Some really groovy lighting. I really enjoy all of these shapes. I would have all of this hanging in my house. And yet right around the corner is a bunch of Victorian, and they're really nice pieces. Walnut with burl inlay, a lot of high style 1880s and 90s furniture here. You can just go right down the line. The tall mirrored dresser. Hello, everybody. And by the way, please subscribe, because then we can send you notices and let you know when we have other videos coming out. Here is a side-by-side where you have the cylinder desk that rolls out of the front. A nice chest of drawers. Chests of drawers are very popular because they're something that people usually need more space for this sort of thing. And now that you don't have people insisting on keeping them in a particular set, they're more likely to sell. Small furniture is often easier to sell than big furniture these days. But I do like these pieces as well. 1920s and 30s American, a lot of really high quality furniture making from Grand Rapids, Michigan and upstate New York in that period of time. And now we're starting to get into the digger part of the mall, and there is a ton of the digger part of the mall. I do really like this piece. Obviously not the right ashtray. You'd have to find a jadeite tray, and it'd have to be maybe a Fenton from the 20s, a little bowl to fit. There's also a chip there, so I would not take that on, but it would be really cute if it was all there. 30% off a set of 3 bookends. So there were 2 sets and one of them bit the dust. So really you're getting 1 set of bookends and a spare for $85 less 30%. I wouldn't take that deal. This is a very early flow blue cup and saucer because this is a handleless, so this is 1830s or 40s. They're starting to get things more perfected, but sometimes they have factory seconds, and the decal between the hot clear glaze and the bottom layer of clay, well, it runs. And in England, that's considered a factory second. So away it goes to the wonderful United States of America, where the people think it's great and are willing to buy it. And today, people in England could care less about this stuff, and people in the US really like it. It's really beautiful in its way. 80%. I always will stop for something that large. There's still a bunch of stuff here. Silver plate teapot. Needs battery. Well, like, does it work? 20% of the tag is what you're looking at. I don't really care for much of this, but 20% of 325 is only $65 for the pair of cloisonne pieces. Those look like Japanese wireless cloisonne, and people are liking that now, so at $32.50 a piece. Yeah, I might get those. I like that piece in the back, the Royal Rudelstadt. I mean, it's a great price at only $20. Am I going to buy it? Maybe. I mean, it's one of those things that I know is not highly fashionable with collectors, but that is such an inexpensive price. Someone should love that. And it makes me think I should be looking at some of these porcelains too, although I do see some damage on some. I'm finally finding some things that I think I might be able to buy for resale. I don't know what they have on the Roseville here, but we'll take a look at that as well. There's a big Majolica cheese dome. My first appraisal ever was one of those. And at the time for insurance, I think we appraised it about $600. They had $1,200 on it. Now it's $240. That might still be too much for resale. Well, let's go get some help. Here's another 80% off space. So we got some old Staffordshire. It looks like it's as is, and that's a reason not to buy it. The costume jewelry doesn't interest me. The jades are newish and not really jade. There are other materials that look like the Francomba piece for $7, maybe. I really like the cat for $50. I think that's a taker. And if that's Fenton's wheat at $25, I'll have that too. I think I'm about to spend some money. These were common in their time, but they're not really common now. I don't see these a lot at all. 1930s platinite with the black and the white is, you know, it wasn't an expensive piece, but nowadays for $28, it's probably worth, I don't know, 40, almost worth buying. Ah yes, the party light pieces, made in West Germany. Here's another early flow blue piece. This one flowing more because it's just such a heavy pattern. This was commissioned by the Louisville Marine Hospital in 1825. Louisville is one of the older cities in the country. What a nice color combination. This newer group of Fiesta colors looks great with these 1930s Hall crocus and the Tiffin poppy vase of the same era. Some interesting teapots over here by Hall China as well. But crocus is one of my favorite patterns. It's transfer, but it just has so many happy colors. I also really am fond of this Art Deco pattern from the same period of time. Look for Karlsruhe pottery. The woman here with the pot is priced at $96. It's a name you'll see seldomly, but it is a name that sells for good money. And it's also interesting in design. The K. Finch Bell and Bow. K. Finch used to sell for a lot more. At $35 though, these are a good deal. They're a little more ornate with the bow. It's a little more complicated. It's three-dimensional. More of them would have been broken. The fan is another place. All of these applied pieces. This is late 30s, early 40s California pottery. Very sweet. And K. Finch was quite a designer. And these probably could sell for $10 more. Cadillac's 1942. Hood ornament. 1942 cars are scarce because the government told all of the car companies to stop making cars as of the beginning of calendar year 1942. So they only got a few months of 1941 to sell the new 1942 introductions, and the remaining ones had to be kept aside in case the war dragged on, and everything had to be turned over to war production. So this one's a really hard one to find, and that's why it's priced at $295. She's just beautiful though. I'd like to know more about the artist who sculpted these hood ornaments. I bet there's some scholarship out there. It's something I should look into. Okay, for you sound geeks, this is a sound sphere. This would have been made to blast music through a disco or a rock club, and you can see the tag on it. Gives you an idea of the era. So probably vintage at this point, I would say. Look at the design. It is really cool looking. Nostalgia has not been limited to just our time. Look at the Surrey with the fringe on top. I'm sitting in the middle of it, so let me get out of the way and show you. This is from about 1960, when nostalgia for Victorian and early 20th century carriages and horseless carriages and the like was at fever pitch. Recommended by Art Linkletter, kids. It's the Jim Dandy Surrey. And I've seen these before. I had something like this that I sold that was as is, and the guy fixed it up and had fun with it. I don't think he got $9.75 for it, but mine did not have the fringe on top, and this is in perfect condition. I have not seen this model ever before. I don't think you're going to see too many of them ever again. I'm the guy who keeps saying marble tables, and wow, these people are on it. They've got a whole bunch. And I see prices from $195 to $395, and it looks like eras ranging from this Victorian piece with the A little bit of spoon carving on the apron there. This is nice because it's got the two-toning around the apron and the painted gold detail. Nice 1890s piece on the porcelain castors. Castors are little wheels down there. I think when Mary Hadley said they were going out of business, a lot of people raided the place and bought what they could out of the store, and now there's a whole bunch of it sitting here, but there's really great pieces. Bouquet. I don't know what Mary Hadley has brought back yet. So some of these pieces are probably never coming back into production, especially these dated ones that they have priced as low as $7. And then they have ashtray, spotted pig, and rocking horse. This really cool 5-chord casserole, the water cooler. Water coolers are something I do well with. I have noticed that they are popular in the summer everywhere and popular down south almost all the time. If you're given over to the new interest in brass, well, these handsome old lamps might be something to consider, because there's a lot of style and a little bit of craftsmanship to these. $195 on the cherub, but this one in particular, the big urn, which is rather formal, so stately and so large and quite grand. It probably dates to the 1920s because of the double lamp and this particular fixture where you would have a shade that sat atop it so you could get something made to fit. Just a really neat piece. A very strange and disturbing but interesting painting by J. Hall, 1987. I don't know that I would have noticed that if it wasn't for looking at the brass lamp. So that's one thing about shopping these places, is one thing leads you to another, and wherever your eye goes, you're likely to see something different the next time, which is why it's fun to go around your own local shops and malls and shop and check in from time to time. $14.95 on the little English desk. This is very nice because it's such a small size to fit out of the way. That's one nice thing about English furniture. It's very compact typically. This is really nice on the other hand because of the kidney shape, because of the gallerying around the top, that metalwork, and especially because of the parquetry. It just has really nice, very detailed parquetry in geometric. So a very handsome little table. That one is priced $3.95, and I can see why, because it's really very attractive for what it is. Blue and red transferware or something that really, to my eye, have always created a very homey feel. And putting them on a farm table like this, I think, really exemplifies that. Transferware does go back all the way to the late 1700s, after all. There's just brightness and cheerfulness to this color combination to a lot of people who collect and display this way. This is really fun because it's a bunch of scientific instruments, and we've got things like a velometer. I recognize some of this stuff because I've cleaned out some estates in Seattle where a lot of Boeing engineers would go to their sales when they sold off some of this old stuff every year. And we've got a blasters machine, old dry battery from a telephone. This is a telescope elbow with the setting circle. I sold a smaller version last year. This one says it's a firehouse punch register. I don't know why that is, and I'm not sure why there's an advantage to it being clear, but it is by Gamewell that made all of the other fire-related things, so we'll have to see what the significance of this is. And speaking of fire extinguishers, this thing full of powder that you would open, and it had a hook, and then you would throw it on the fire. That was your fire extinguisher. About 1925. Wow, these are fun. The tulip style chairs are a set of 4, and they are $800 each, but they are original out of the 70s, and they look like they're in really good condition. And you can see the original molding mark there for North Central Industries in Johnson Creek, Wisconsin. Patent pending. It's interesting the way they've stacked things up. I've been telling you, and I've done videos at Lander Street Vintage in Seattle, that stacking furniture is something I learned there. Sometimes you just have no choice. These metal patio chairs, and these are original ones, are only $45 each. Now I don't love the color, and the condition of this one is pretty shot, but this one seems fine. Oh, this one's only $25. They see the damage. Have somebody you don't like sit on that one. I like the way they put these things together because they're not buying whole sets of things that all match, but they're finding ways to make it look interesting. Here's a little salon mercantile counter metal display, and it's marked down to $30. And you know, these little things are so useful to people now, that might be cheap enough to buy and resell. Especially because I could put lots of little stuff in it in the meantime. How does the top open, though? It's not the most exciting thing graphically, but at least it's interesting for what it is. Well, after wrestling with this thing for 15 minutes, I see why it's been marked down, and I'm not going to buy it because you cannot get this open to do anything with that part. There is no release. There's glass here, like there was a photo or a display. You'd think this would just slide out. It doesn't. I've turned it upside down. I've turned it on its side. I've done everything I can think to do. So it has outsmarted me, and sometimes when something is smarter than I am, it deserves to stay for somebody smarter than me. I like the way they put this together, the little French Art Deco accent table and the lamp, and then these chairs with the tubular chrome that have been reupholstered in an interesting sort of a cork. Interesting grouping of textures, I think. See, now this place just goes on and on and on. They have a pretty cider jug there with the violets painted upon it. $36. They just say it's a pitcher. And is it a cider jug? I'm not sure. It has an ice lip, so it might actually just be a water pitcher, even though it has that low squat design. And it is a Japanese-made piece from about 1920. I've heard the term Rubenesque all my life, but he looks pretty skinny to me. This is a pretty piece here with the angelfish. McCoy, they've got 50 on it, but the angelfish are just about the most popular, along with the butterflies for this molded ware of the 1930s. And no, it is not all marked McCoy in a way that you're going to be able to read, so you have to learn these early patterns. I like the Goldscheider seagull. It just says bird in flight, but the glaze is pretty recognizable. It's glossy. This is later production for them, but there's their mark. They were another group of potters who came over from Nazi Germany and escaped and set up shop in the United States. It's a pretty decent piece. The first thing I ever sold at a show was Goldscheider, but not as in demand now. This place was some sort of an old factory, and there are catacombs and rooms all over the place everywhere you look. So who knows what's where, especially because a lot of dealers moved here when Crazy Daisy closed. Everybody's looking for a place for things to go, and this is the place. It is probably the biggest antique mall in Kentucky, I'm guessing at this point. It's a dowry trunk coffee table. To me, it looks like something Fred Flintstone would have had. $4.50. It is cool, though. I do like the flourish mirrors here. These look like early 80s, and I think they're actually good design. So there you go, something from the 80s that I can say I approve. This little side server, you can tell this is 1970s or 60s at the earliest because of the pickling of the oak. That was not something that was done prior to that time. This is a Brighton console table, and it would work great as a desk as they have it displayed, but it would work great in so many ways. It could certainly be on top of a table for display as a shelf unit anywhere, whether at home or in a dealer's show booth. However, it is priced accordingly at $425. There is definitely understanding of modernism in Louisville. There's a lot of collectors here. There's also a lot of collectors in nearby Cincinnati. So you're going to see a mix of traditional furniture, resale consignment furniture of good quality, some custom furniture, some old furniture like this 1920s open hutch or Welsh dresser. Lipstick first.
You have to have a key.
You probably do because it's a cylinder desk and typically you lift them by the key. Yeah, generally so. This one says that it is as a hidden compartment. Oh, that's always fun. They have the key at the front desk, so I can't show you, but there's a hidden compartment inside. It's got a Scottish-looking griffin on it. I believe that's a 20th century piece, though. It's very high gloss finish. Oh, I like that a lot. Yeah, it is different. And it's $150 now. I mean, you could put any color chairs with that if you could find a set, and the legs splay in a way that there wouldn't be in the way. So, yeah, I like that one. The ashtray is really cool. I thought you were pointing at the Last Supper paint by number at first, which is priced at $85, and the ashtray, $16. It just says black and white ashtray. It looks 1980s. My guess is it's Japanese. It looks like stoneware from that period. Well, after Crazy Daisy left, now there's Daisy Lane, and there are some cool pieces of modern glass here. I like this Italian piece. $70 seems all right because of the color. These are great. These are Shawnee Kenwood from the 1950s in the gray rather than the black. You don't see the gray as much. I guess they got the word about brass being popular. I've always liked the brass boxes, though. I've been buying and selling those since I started in this. And of course, old brass scales and parts are great too. Yes, days of working at Arby's when they sold a lot of this stuff through us. When I was there, they were selling these glasses. They're all based on the BC comic strip. There's the colored ones. These, I believe, are Fire King. And the big casserole is hard to find. The cookie jar is harder to find. So they have some prices on them, $25 and $65 on this set. Who made that? That looks like a Blanco in that yellow color, actually. The jonquil.
Stopper.
It would have had a stopper. Yeah, you can see where the grind is, and that's the other reason I think Blanco. Narwhal, these are going to be the American-made ones, and they are $40 for the pair. That's actually pretty good. The one they like the best is the girl, but actually I think these are going pretty well now, so I might have to pick these up. Another burly winter vase out of Kirksville, Ohio. We certainly have seen a lot of this here in Louisville. Now we know this is a good place to look for it if you are a collector. Do like the glazes. This is a pretty lamp, although it's been changed a little bit, but I like the reverse painting. It's my first time purchasing here. Okay, very good. I'll fill this out for you, thanks. This is how we don't pay sales tax when we're shopping in other places. Well, I'm not the only one shopping. Those folks are loading a couple of big old mirrors into that truck. Well, this has been a great afternoon antiquing in an interesting place. I'm so glad that, oh boy, it's hot and sunny. Let me do this. I'm so glad that Louisville has a place that is an antique destination and that I was able to buy there this time. There is more variety and there are more price levels than there were before, and that's great for me as a reseller. Plenty of stuff for collectors and decorators too. So if you're in the Louisville area, well, this place is huge and you could get lost here for hours. In the meantime,
if you enjoyed this video, check out this one. Also, click thumbs up to like this video and check the description for information about our Patreon, our memberships. We've got a lot of different levels with different perks and bonus videos and early content. Also, please do check out our website, theantiquenomad.com, for appraisal help. And we'll see you again for more adventures in the antique and vintage community soon. Bye for now.